You're going to lose your job. Not tomorrow, maybe not next year, but the clock is ticking on a massive number of white-collar, college-educated roles. Everything you were told about career safety, about needing a university degree to be secure, is turning out to be a fatal lie. The machines aren't coming for the factory floor anymore, they're coming for your desk. And when they hit, they won't just take a few tasks. They'll trigger an office collapse. For decades, we had a simple, comforting narrative. Factory jobs go, but knowledge jobs are safe. The economy shifts, and you get retrained to become an analyst, a copywriter, a coder, or a consultant. But the rules of the game have fundamentally changed. We're not talking about software making us better at our jobs. We're talking about making our jobs obsolete. This isn't just about efficiency. This is about the impending crisis for the entire professional class. And today, we're going to break down exactly which jobs are doomed, why, and what the historical precedents tell us about this terrifying shift. For over 100 years, the core value proposition of having a white-collar job was simple. You process complex information better than a machine, and you provided context, nuance, and creativity that a simple script or algorithm couldn't handle. Think about the sheer number of people employed just to shuffle information. Accountants, paralegals, market analysts, tech support, content writers, editors, these people are paid to read, process, synthesize, and write. They are human data conduits, and that's a fatal design flaw in the age of generative AI. When the internet came along, it changed how we processed information. When AI like GPT-4 arrived, it changed who processed the information. It shifts the work from human synthesis to machine generation. And the sheer speed and cost difference is what guarantees a market crisis. A human analyst takes 8 hours to read 50 market reports and write a concise 3-page summary. The current generation of AI can do that in 8 seconds for a fraction of a cent. Economically, there is no contest. Companies are not driven by loyalty. They are driven by cost and efficiency. And when the cost of labor-saving technology drops to almost nothing, that labor disappears. This isn't a slow transition. This is an accelerating process where the technology is improving at a pace far faster than our educational systems or our social safety nets can handle. This speed is what makes the current situation so much more urgent than the previous industrial revolutions. In the past, children could be educated into the new economy. This time, the new economy is arriving before the current college graduates can even pay off their loans. Let's look at the specific sectors that are already facing an immediate, doomed future. The first group facing the office apocalypse are the workers whose primary task is simply translating or summarizing. These are the jobs that relied on the barrier of entry being language and basic context. The legal world, famous for its high cost and deep reliance on precedent and complex documentation, is an immediate casualty. Think about a paralegal. What do they spend 80% of their day doing? They are tasked with discovery sifting through millions of emails, documents, and transcripts to find the 3 paragraphs that are relevant to a court case. This is purely a pattern recognition and synthesis problem. AI is built for this. It can read 10,000 pages in the time it takes a human to read the cover page. A top-tier AI system doesn't just look for keywords. It understands legal intent and context. It can identify patterns in communication that suggest collusion or fraud, patterns so subtle a human eye would miss them, and then it can summarize those findings into a concise memo ready for a senior partner. This doesn't mean the high-end legal partners, the ones who argue in front of the Supreme Court or handle massive mergers, are going away. But the vast majority of the expensive, tedious labor that kept junior associates and paralegals employed is already being internalized by corporate legal departments using AI software. Why pay a new hire $120,000 a year to do a 10-hour task when you can pay a software subscription $100 a month to do it in 10 minutes? The legal profession is facing a collapse of its entry-level talent pipeline. The next group facing a total crisis are the content farms and the armies of low to mid-tier copywriters, journalists, and editors. The internet for the last 20 years has been fueled by a massive demand for simple, repetitive, and SEO-optimized text. Articles like Top 10 Tips for Buying a Used Car or The Ultimate Guide to Kitchen Renovations. These were the bread and butter of millions of content creators globally. This content was not written for humans. It was written for search engine algorithms. And guess what? AI models are essentially the ultimate search engine algorithms capable of generating perfectly structured, keyword-optimized articles instantly. We've already seen a fatal shift here. Newsrooms are being gutted, and digital marketing agencies are consolidating. If your job description involves spending more than 4 hours a day writing a first draft of any generic business or product description, that job is doomed. This goes beyond just writing. It extends to basic design and formatting. The need for a human to choose stock images, write 3 different social media captions for a blog post, and format the HTML is fading because AI platforms are integrating all these functions. The barrier to entry for content creation has gone from needing a human creative team to needing one person with a fast internet connection and an AI subscription. The market for basic writing skills is entering a collapse. Now, let's look at the more complex, higher-paid roles that people thought were absolutely untouchable. This is where the fatal shock will truly hit the professional middle class. Coding has long been the gold standard for career safety. If you could code, you had a guaranteed high-paying job. But AI is already turning coding into a much higher-level managerial task, eliminating the huge swath of mid-level execution roles. AI tools are getting incredibly good at writing boilerplate code, debugging complex systems, and translating between programming languages. A senior engineer will always be needed to define the architecture, manage the vision, and ask the right questions. But the army of mid-level engineers whose job was to essentially translate the senior engineer's instructions into usable, repetitive code is becoming redundant. Think of it this way. AI is transforming the coding workflow from writing sentences, lines of code, to writing paragraphs, prompt engineering. The actual mechanical task of writing code is becoming automated. This creates a crisis because it means the ladder, the route from junior coder to mid-level to senior, is being broken. Where do the new seniors get their thousands of hours of experience if the mid-level jobs are gone? This is a looming disaster for the entire tech pipeline, a doomed future for anyone who just manages code instead of designing systems. The financial sector runs on analysis, market tracking, risk assessment, trend forecasting, and reporting. Analysts are paid 6 figures to spot patterns in massive datasets. But again, this is a pattern recognition problem. A human can monitor 50 stocks. An AI can monitor 50,000 global assets in real time. A human can build a financial model using 24 variables. An AI can simulate economic outcomes using hundreds of variables and update the model instantly when a new piece of data like a central bank announcement or a geopolitical event is released. The financial analyst who spends their day in Excel creating pivot tables and writing reports on quarterly performance is facing a fatal economic reality. The core competency of the job data manipulation and synthesis is now a machine function. Senior portfolio managers who rely on gut feeling, client relationships, and high-level strategic decision-making will remain. But the vast majority of the analytical, supporting staff, the people who make the PowerPoint decks and build the spreadsheets, are facing a crisis of relevance. The economic case for massive downsizing in this sector is overwhelming. To understand the urgent nature of this shift, we have to stop comparing it to the slow-burn industrial revolution and look at more recent sudden crises. The best historical parallel isn't the slow fading of the blacksmith. It's the overnight collapse of specific, powerful, white-collar infrastructures. Think back to the 1980s and 90s. There was a huge, well-paid, highly respected professional class of people whose job was to handle information, storage and retrieval for massive corporations. We called them secretaries, typists, and filing clerks. In the 1970s, A major law firm would employ dozens of typists to process documents on typewriters and a huge crew of clerks to manage the physical filing cabinets, which could take up entire floors. They were essential. Then came the PC, word processing software, and electronic databases. This wasn't a slow erosion. It was a fatal, sudden shift. A single person with a PC and a spreadsheet could suddenly handle the workload of 6 typists and 3 clerks. Within a single decade, that entire class of professional employment, a massive, stable, middle-class career path, was utterly decimated. The value of their core skill, typing speed, filing efficiency, went to zero. That collapse was caused by 3 things: a desktop computer, a piece of software like Microsoft Word, and a small hard drive. Today's shift is caused by the Internet, large language models, LLMs, and an endless, cheap supply of cloud computing power. The scale of the change is exponentially larger, and the affected jobs are exponentially more complex. The key lesson from the 80s and 90s is that once the technology reaches a critical point, the elimination of jobs is rapid and brutal. It's not a slow leak, it's a dam breaking. That's why the AI crisis is so urgent. It's not just an economic headwind. It's a silent tsunami coming for the professional office tower. The doomed future for these jobs is now a matter of economic inevitability. So, what is the survival strategy in this office apocalypse? If AI is eliminating the need for human data processing and synthesis, what remains valuable? The key is focusing on the unautomatable human skills, the things that AI, by its very nature, cannot do. 3 core skills will survive the collapse: complex, interpersonal negotiation, and influence. AI can write the best contract, but it cannot sit across the table from a hostile client or competitor and use charisma, body language, and intuition to close the deal. Sales, high-level client relations, and diplomacy will remain human-driven. Unconventional, novel problem-solving. AI is excellent at finding patterns in existing data. It is inherently bad at solving problems that have no historical precedent, the truly new issues. The ethical dilemmas, the creative leaps that require forming connections between entirely unrelated fields. Jobs focused on pure research, high-level strategy, and radical innovation are safer. Human empathy and care. Jobs that require genuine human connection, empathy, and physical presence, nursing, primary education, therapy, elder care, and the creative arts that rely on unique human experience will not only survive, but will likely become more valuable. You can't automate comfort. The fatal mistake is confusing complexity with security. AI is mastering complexity. Our only path forward is to focus on humanity. We must pivot our entire education system away from teaching skills that machines are better at processing information, and towards skills machines can't touch: originality, emotional intelligence, and physical interaction. If we fail to do this quickly, the economic crisis caused by this office collapse will be doomed to trigger massive social and political instability globally. It is an urgent moment that demands immediate, radical action, not slow, bureaucratic planning. If you want to keep up with the urgent economic shifts that are fundamentally changing the global job market, hit that subscribe button.